They don't go for something like that. And within the university system, no, I must place the union in proper participation for people to understand.
Hello and welcome to the program. Arguably, the biggest story trending in Nigeria today is the face-off between the Minister of State for Petroleum, Kachikwu, and the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Kachikwu. Everyone is talking about it. The Senate has even waded into the matter, set up a panel to investigate the allegations of insubordination and refusal to follow due process leveled against the NNPC GMD. As I said, virtually everyone in this country is talking about it. But surprisingly, the presidency has maintained what some have described as an unhealthy silence over the matter. And by the way, it is actually not the first time ministers in President Buhari's cabinet would be having problems with heads of parastatals or government agencies under them. And let's focus on this one. Now, a 7-page letter surfaced last week written by Kachikwu to President Muhammadu Buhari. The letter dated 27th of August 2017 chronicled the Cold War which had been going on between the Minister of State for Petroleum and the NNPC boss. Among other things, the letter accused Kachikwu of 4 major abuses of office, which include approving contract without due process, single-handedly making critical appointment without consulting NNPC board as expected by law. And by the way, the Minister of State of Petroleum is actually the head of the NNPC board. Deliberate act of insubordination to the supervising minister who oversees the NNPC, and then deliberate absenteeism from critical meetings called by the minister. Since the letter surfaced in the media, it has become the most discussed issue in the public space in the last 7 days. The social media has been very busy on the matter. It was the top trending issue on Twitter for about 3 days. In fact, when you type in the phrase Kachikwu writes Buhari in the Google search engine, you'll get a result of 225,000 in 0.38 seconds. Now, there are media reports also that the president never got to see the letter until it was published in the media. I'm talking about Kachikwu's letter now. At least the minister made it clear in that letter that he had to write the letter to President Buhari after he had made several attempts to see the president without success. And if you ask me, it's more than shocking that a minister would find it difficult to meet with his boss, especially when that minister holds such an important position in charge of petroleum. So just what is going on in Mr. Buhari's cabinet? This is by every means very scandalous. Joining me now to dissect this issue and give a broader perspective to it is lawyer and political analyst Kachikwu. I also have public affairs analyst and civil society leader Nelson Kunjimi. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming and to share your thoughts on this issue.
Thank you very much.
Kachikwu, this is shocking.
Absolutely.
Shocking also that we have not heard anything at all from the presidency, and that the Senate is having to wade in on this, to wade in.
Yes, it's shocking to say the least. Though for some of us, like me personally, it's not shocking. From the onset, I've always known the kind of system that will be put in place by a Buhari presidency. I've studied him since 1984. As a political science student in the University of Calabar, 1984 upwards in about 1987, I studied the political situation in Nigeria and I came out with position papers about character traits, political character traits of our leaders then. And as young as I was then, I knew the political character trait of Muhammadu Buhari. I knew he was a strong personality, but I also knew that he is not so strong in handling certain issues that touch on people who are close to him. And when you talk about people who are close to him, the issue of loyalty comes into play.
So in this case, basically what you're saying is that the reason why probably the presidency has not acted is because maybe the GMD of NNPC is close to him.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
Is it not also surprising that the Minister of State for Petroleum would want to meet with the president and is not able to do so, and that obviously some people might have shielded him from meeting with the president?
No, it's the president himself. That is his person. Remember, whenever
But why
he
would
goes,
the president not want to meet with his
that
minister?
is Buhari's person. That's his person. He recently he's been going out for medical treatment. He failed all those periods to address the nation. And I remember Adesina, the media person for the president, saying that that is the person we voted for. It is his character, and since we voted for him, we must take him as it is, as he is, because he's not good at PR, if you like. Yes.
Anyway, but let me just pause you there. Nelson, we've also heard, I mean, he says that's the president's character, but it's difficult to imagine that the president would not want to meet with his minister. Could this just be the deliberate action of some people, you know, who tried to make sure this minister did not sit with the president to do this, and that you have a situation where the minister, probably realizing what is at play, just well, he said he did not leak that letter to the public, but, you know, somehow the letter had to be in the public to draw the attention of the president.
Well, first and foremost, I disagree with my colleague here about the character of Mr. President. Even though some of us have not met him, we have studied him. He's a man that believes in his subordinates. And also, if you are saying Maikanti Baru is close to Mr. President, don't also forget that for quite a long time, until Maikanti Baru was appointed, the Minister for State was the GMD of the same NNPC. So what has happened there actually is very, very worrisome. Because one, I expect that Igbe Kachikwu, as a Minister of State, was attending the weekly Federal Executive Council's meetings. So I'm surprised that Igbe Kachikwu can come out publicly leaking a memo, an official memo to his boss.
But let's get this straight. Igbe Kachikwu has denied leaking that.
No, okay,
memo. We don't know.
okay.
But anyway, the memo leaked somehow.
Yes,
yeah.
okay, but
the letter
for him to tell us that he cannot access Mr. President, for some of us, it is very, very worrisome. And that is why, as we speak...
you think that is impossible? Is it something that...
I find it very difficult to believe, but I wouldn't want to throw away those allegations. That is why this morning, I was very, very happy listening to the news when I heard that Igbe Kachikwu had an audience with Mr. President on that matter, which means those allegations he has raised, the government is going to, you know, act on it to ensure that, you know, the matter...
If he had an audience with the president, probably that happened just because the letter leaked. If the letter had not leaked, that audience would not have, the opportunity to meet with the president would not have...
No, we wouldn't know. We are only making, you know, conjectures here. We wouldn't know if really he tried to see Mr. President and he was unable. But what we know publicly now is that a letter he wrote to Mr. President became a public letter, and due to the nature of the allegations, don't forget that allegations, until it is investigated and substantiated with facts, they are weighty allegations, we must agree.
Quite weighty allegations.
And, you know, the allegations that if they are true, you know, there should be, you know, consequences for violating the rules of engagement of the NNPC as an institution. And, you know, so one expects that these allegations are right there, that the most, you know, honorable thing for us to do now is to expect that these allegations will be investigated and the appropriate thing done.
Kachikwu, the Senate has set up a panel to investigate this. Do you think the Senate actually should be doing this? I mean, you look at it, both men involved in this thing are appointees of the president, the minister, and of course the GMD of the NNPC. Of course, one would have expected that the presidency should investigate this and handle it. Because I just wonder, what can the Senate do about this? Even if at all it investigated and came out with a report, what can it do?
I think it's good that the Senate is investigating it. It falls within their...
Even if at the end of the day, it doesn't have the power to impose sanctions.
Yes. Power to impose sanctions lies with the executive, or perhaps when it gets to the judiciary, with the judiciary. The Senate is constitutionally empowered to do what it's doing, to expose waste or corruption. If there is corruption in the entire allegations, if Senate looks into it, it will be able to expose it to the knowledge of the people. That alone is a good thing to happen. We were just talking about appointments. To tell you that there are a lot of irregularities, abnormalities happening within the oil industry. You will see that over time it has become a matter of convention that convention is now taken up and above the law.
The law.
And very unusually, the law should be above convention.
Because it's quite surprising what the minister said.
Yes.
That the GMD of NNPC made critical appointments without recourse
absolutely.
to the board of the
absolutely.
NNPC.
It's convention. It's convention.
And we see that even in other
establishments, whereas the law is there. And that is one of the problems I have with this administration. And I know, like I said earlier on, that is the tendency of President Buhari. He would rather take law aside and do what he thinks is best in the circumstances. That means he likes his personal whims to ride.
Are you suggesting, for instance, that the actions of the GMD, if at all, because I mean there are still allegations now anyway, if at all they are proven to be so, that would have had the blessings of the president?
By implication, it may not be. You may not hear the president come out directly to say, I like what the GMD is doing, what he's done, I supported him. But you can see the handwriting on the wall. The NNPC Act gives the Council of Ministers the power to appoint the NNPC group managing director, not the president. Though it is the president that appoints the council, the ministers, making up the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers by themselves appoint the GMD. But you see naturally that the convention is that it's the president that appoints. And so the loyalty goes directly to the president. The minister, who is the Minister of Petroleum Resources, who should be the chairman of the board of directors of NNPC. Yeah. And in this instance, the president has given the power to the Minister of State.
Yes.
That means that the entire running of the affairs of NNPC shall be done by the board under the chairmanship of Kachikwu. So if what he's saying is anything to go by, and for now we don't have counter narrative, information out there. If what he's saying is anything to go by, it shows you that there is a complete disregard to the clear provisions of the law, the NNPC Act.
Nelson, let's face it, under this administration, this is actually not the first time we'll be hearing, hearing of something of this nature. Even in the Ministry of Health, just some months back, there was this face-off now between the minister and the head of a particular agency. Is it the primary healthcare agency? I can't remember now. Where the head of that agency was actually standing up to the minister. The minister that is supposed to be supervising the ministry. We've had similar situations in the Ministry of Finance as well.
Yes.
I mean, what exactly does this say? Does this, I don't know, do you think this is giving some kind of impression of a president that is not in control of his cabinet, not in control of the workings of his government?
No, absolutely not. That tells you clearly the rot inherited by the present administration. That tells you clearly the equivalent tax before the government of the day. That look, the mess you have inherited is far beyond like the other eye can see. You can see that it pervades every sector of our economy.
Some of these men we're talking about were actually appointed by this government.
Yes,
the head of this agency.
Yes, but you must realize that even if they are appointed by the government of the day, there are rules of engagement. And whenever there's a violation of those rules, that is where we see these things come up. Maybe some of these so-called appointees met the system working in that same way, and they feel it could be business as usual, but somehow, the things got, the bubble got burst.
But we can't deny the fact that the presidency has been very slow in reacting to some
of
these things,
we can say that from the layman's point of view, but you must also recognize the fact that as a presidency, they have so many reports, they have so many information at their fingertips. Like, we are only looking at it from the surface value. We don't know what is beneath. There are other factors that have to be considered that may not be open to us here. So we expect that whether slow or fast, the most important thing is for us to see that at the end of the day, justice is done.
Ikechukwu,
yeah.
The NNPC has always been in the news. I mean, so many things. Think of even the previous GMDs. The GMDs of NNPC had always lived this larger-than-life image. You think very powerful. They had always been powerful. And people are saying, look, this is the clear reason why you need to unbundle that agency and break it down. You share that view?
I share that view. You see, NNPC is a company engaged in business. And the government has no business in business. And NNPC is simply put a government agency, and yet it's involved in business. It has shares in almost every oil block that you can find in Nigeria today. And that
Because if you have one man controlling this huge amount,
the
being in charge of
NNPC is
huge
a
amount of
cash
money.
cow. The NNPC Act provides that NNPC has power to retain some of the incomes that it is making for the purpose of making some expenditures that it has to make. And so the NNPC itself, any money it makes, it will first of all take its own expenses, whatever it is.
It says it has spent.
It keeps it and returns the balance. If there is balance, according to its accounting, it will return it to the government coffers. If there is no balance, it may declare a deficit. And if it declares a deficit, it will wait for the next of its budget period to get back the deficit. And it continues to go on like that. So government, anytime government wants money, any government official that wants any kind of careless money, he goes to NNPC, give me money. And NNPC has so much to give. So there is need to unbundle the NNPC. There is need to create a situation where there will be a commercial enterprise known as Nigerian Commercial Oil Company. That if Nigeria wants to be there, Nigeria will buy shares with its own money, and it will be run like a completely private enterprise. That is what we need now.
Nelson, this must be very damaging for, not just for the presidency of Muhammad Buhari, but also it's not a good thing for an industry that is very important. Important to, very critical to the livelihood of this country, whether or not we like it. Oil is still a major source of foreign exchange earning in this country. And when you have the two major figures in that industry fighting, it's not good at all.
Yes, I agree with you absolutely. And like he has rightly said, but we must also recognize the fact that this brings to fore why we need to look at maybe the petroleum industry bill. Don't forget the the former minister for petroleum, Mrs. Alison Madueke, in the previous administration. As of today, we have reports that about $1.8 billion has been traced to her. And even the EFCC chairman had to come out and said what they have only been able to recover from her is just 10% of what she allegedly stole. So that tells you clearly that the oil industry is one that has become a cesspit of corruption. And that is why we are saying these allegations that the Minister for State has raised about abuse of public office, insubordination and what have you against the GMD of the NNPC, it should not only be looked at from the allegations alone. There's need for us to do an holistic overview, because time and time again, even Haiti has always come up with revelations of the rot in NNPC. Don't forget, a former GMD of NNPC, billions of dollars was recovered in his cold room somewhere in Kaduna State. So it tells you clearly that the rot in the NNPC still persists, and that is why we need to, as a people, as even including the media, we need to all come together and look at it dispassionately. That look, this NNPC, how do we make transparency and accountability the watchword such that whoever gets
probably just unbundle as
whoever, well, I won't rush to unbundle,
but the government wants to do that.
Yes, you recognize that the GMD of NNPC then, Kachikwu, was also interested along that line, and some of the labor unions were kicking against it. That no, you are going to say they misconstrued.
Well, I know it's an agenda of this.
It's an agenda.
I
yes,
know the unions
yes,
were against it.
They were against it. So there's need for us all to sit down and really look at these things holistically, such that we'll be able to reduce the level of corruption that has become a national shame from that institution.
But very quickly, because we have to wrap up, you think it's time that the president, you think it's time that the president not just rejig his cabinet, but rejig the entire system, including appointments now he's made in these government agencies, department and parastatals.
Let's be very clear about it. It is not the people in the offices that are the problem in Nigeria. It is the structure. The civil service is a rotten place. Nigerian civil service is a rotten place. It's the civil servants
rotten, and restructuring the civil service is
is the key.
It's a tough
What do you mean by
task.
restructuring the civil service?
It's a tough task.
You-
I mean,
you have to-
we've done it.
You see,
Several
pensions,
panels. You have the Orosanye panel.
when you know that when you end your work period, your tenure as a civil servant ends, that you are assured of your pensions. It will control you, and if you see that your pensions are such as can take care of all your needs post service, it will.
So the tendency to be corrupt will reduce.
Will be reduced. Those are some of the things. When Muritala Mohammed came in 1976, he walked into civil service office and you are not seated, he will say you are sacked. And that civil servant who has worked 20 years will lose out and had nothing. And so people realize that if government can come today and sack them, and so corruption started, let me get as much as I can get before I know when I will go. And so they start teaching politicians. When a politician comes in today as a minister, they sit him down and shows him all the loopholes, how to make money. There's no money that will be stolen from the pocket of Nigeria today that civil servants are not involved.
Let me get your take on this. You think that is actually the problem we need to resolve now? Restructure the civil service and then?
We need to restructure almost every facet of our life. Because if you look at it, a major reason why we are the way we are is because we are very, very indisciplined.
And most importantly, it's we the individuals.
Yes, it's with it. Because when you are talking about character now. No matter how you restructure or you rejig a system, if you put somebody in that office without character, it's going to mess it up. So most importantly, we need a holistic overview or holistic restructuring of even ourselves as human beings. That what is the essence of a human life? Because today we talk about putting in place measures that will take care of you after you have left service. How about those who don't even have a means of life? How are we taking care of the vulnerable in the society? So we have quite a lot to do, but most importantly, we must look at what is the meaning or what does it mean to be a human being.
Absolutely.
Do we attach value to human life? If we have done that, if we can do that as a people, a lot of these problems will be solved.
Very quickly, just in a few seconds, what do you expect going forward on these allegations that Ibe Kachikwu has raised? What do you expect to see?
My expectation on it is that I expect those allegations to be investigated and the needful done.
I would expect that Ibe Kachikwu should resign.
No, I don't think he should resign.
I think that's my view. You're asking me my view. I should think that he should resign.
I don't think he should
would
resign.
also expect.
Why would you say that?
I would, so that there will be free reign of investigation.
When
I would also expect Baru, the GMD, to also step aside.
How will they interfere with the investigations? I don't think so.
The investigation will pass through their table, just like we saw in this case of the secretary to the federal government. When he was there, it was difficult, but when he left, it became easy. It is best that they leave the seat. Even if they have to come back, let them leave their investigations are carried out. And by the way, we have not seen the results of the investigation of the SGF and the NIA.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We're still waiting for the outcome of that investigation, because the report has actually been submitted to the president, and I wonder why it's taking this long. If both of them have been cleared, then they can as well ask them to return.
Well, we're happy that no statement has not been issued on it yet, whether they've been cleared.
But to be candid, I wouldn't want Ibe Kachikwu to resign. I want this.
No, I don't. Ibe Kachikwu will not in any way tamper with
so
this.
you have your opinion.
Let's face it, he's been a very good minister.
I don't subscribe to anybody resigning.
But let me tell you, I'm on air. I'm on air. I have a lot of things to say about him, Ibe Kachikwu, before he became minister. I personally have submitted a lot of petitions, and I have
against him.
Against him.
We're not.
I have documentary.
That's not what we're talking about. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know of you anyway.
I don't subscribe
on this
issue.
I think he has done exceptionally well, and I just think we need some kind of stability, because I mean he's got a couple of ideas, and it's just good to have that stability and allow.
He's not the only one that has those ideas.
No, he's not the only one. But I just think.
Meanwhile, he's a first-class brain. He's a brilliant chap.
I do not support the idea of him resigning. We want to see the outcome of the investigation. Period.
Very true.
And sanctions imposed.
Gentlemen,
thank you very much for coming on the program. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on DEJI360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.